welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator of Fantasy Guides, Stephen Rippey, as well as Jacob Rhodes, fellow Fantasy Guides contributor. And we are gathered today to make some boneheaded statements that we are absolutely going to regret probably immediately after saying them. Gentlemen, we're here for bold predictions. If you're not going to say something with your chest, if you're not willing to say something stupid, don't say something at all. That's what my grandma always told me. Something like that. Steven, you ready for some bold predictions?
I am. No, this is exciting. This will be fun. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm at this point where I'm like, did I have enough takes this offseason? Did I make enough? Because you want to have like stuff that you can back up, at the end of the season. I think we made enough, but with this episode, at least we'll hammer a few more home.
Jacob, what about you? Have you been cooking some stuff up in the lab?
Oh, yeah. All sorts of cooking. I'm ready for draft season. I haven't had my hometown league draft, so I'm waiting for that. It's a week away. I need it. But, yeah, I'm ready.
You better withhold these takes from them because we're going to get into them and we're going to get spicy with them. So bold predictions is what we're doing today. That's the entire slate because we're going to have to spend a while justifying them and yelling at each other for how dumb they are. So these are just some things that have, at least for me, been on my mind of, you know what, I could see this happening, and I can't say it because I'll get yelled at or someone will say it sounds stupid. So you save it for this show. You save it for the bold predictions post, and then you can't be held liable. And that's just how it works. So even for that purpose, I have developed a legal disclaimer. The following takes are meant to be senseless and admittedly unlikely to occur. We are not to be held accountable for them unless, of course, we are correct, in which case we would like full credit. And that is what our lawyers drafted up for us. So
it's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, if we're right, we get to run with it. But if we're wrong, this will go into the sands of time. Like next year, if one of these comes true, I'm going to ride that thing until the cows come home. But if they're wrong, no one will ever see this again.
Well, Andrew, I hope I understood the assignment right, or that you did. I mean, we're picking stuff that we think could happen, right? This isn't just you didn't just throw a dartboard at like a name and then like a take and then put them together.
Well, not for all of mine. No, that's not how I make all of my fantasy analysis. Sometimes I'll roll dice or spin a wheel.
All right. Well, I'm curious to see what you spun it on.
Well, we're going to start with Jacob first. We have more takes than this. We each created a couple for each for the running back and wide receiver position, one for the quarterback, one for the tight end. You're going to be able to catch those on our post on Instagram, so make sure you go check that out and on other social media pages as well. But today we're going to hone it into our favorite three we've got. So Jacob, kick us off. And firstly, how dare you? But go ahead, start.
Yeah, we're going to kick it off hot. Oh, bold take number one. And it's going to hurt. It's going to sting a little bit. Anthony Richardson finishes outside of the top 10 for quarterbacks this season. I know. The beloved quarterback 5/6 right now, finishing outside the top 10. That hurts. It doesn't feel good when you're drafting him in the 5th round, but I have some reasons. There's some fun reasons. And
yeah, I'm sure there are.
Most of the reasons are that he just might not be a good quarterback. So I got some numbers for you. In the last 6 years, there's been one quarterback finish in the top 10, just the top 10 in fantasy that has completed less than 60% of their passes. That was Josh Allen in 2019. He was the quarterback 6 that year. Fun enough, he was actually being drafted as a quarterback 21. So huge value, screaming value. That's not what Anthony Richardson would be this year. So I don't like that stat. Average completion for the top 10 quarterbacks last 3 years is 66%. So a little bit higher than that number. And then last year, there was no quarterback below 64% that finished in the top 10. Do you know what Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was in his 84 attempts last year?
59.5%.
I was going to guess 59%.
It was right below that mark there, but it's worth noting because there were people right next to that mark that finished just outside of the top 10, Fields being one of those I think that was last year or 2 years ago. So it's not good. Being a bad passer, it matters in football. Weird enough. I know it's crazy. You want to complete your passes.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it goes back further. So he was a 54% passer in college, even worse than what he did in his small sample size last year in the NFL. And if you take screen passes away, it was under 50%. So the dude just not completing passes. And did you know, actually, that this guy, I mean, you're basically drafting a rookie this year in the 5th round. He's started 17 games since high school.
I was actually wanting that stat earlier.
17
this offseason,
games.
That's a
Jacob.
lot of games. That's like
In
more
high
than
school.
10.
Since high school.
Double digits.
Since high school. How many do you think Jaden Daniels has started since high school?
1,000,005, but that dude's ancient.
Yeah.
He's like, what is he, 3 years older than Anthony Richardson? I think that might be
Probably.
correct.
Yeah.
I think he's 2.
He is older.
Oh,
AR
like
will
two.
be the youngest quarterback in the league this year, and he was last year too.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's crazy.
he's a young guy.
Wait, I think isn't he older than Stroud?
No,
Richardson or
no, he's
Daniels?
younger.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah. So basically a rookie that you've got to draft in the 5th round. I see the upside. The upside is there with his rushing ability. I think you're still going to get these pop weeks, even if he does finish outside the top 10. He's going to have even potentially week-winning weeks. But I think the ADP is too rich for my blood. I don't like the inaccuracy problems. That doesn't bode well for quarterbacks in the NFL. Look at Justin Fields the past couple years. His trajectory as a rusher is incredible, and it did well for him in fantasy one year, and then last year we all drafted him high, and he got hurt and wasn't great. So I think at the very least, I'm worried about him being a good passer, and you have to admit he has above average injury risk given his history in college and in the NFL so far. So I think there's a lot of risk involved with Anthony Richardson for a decent reward. It's just the ADP. It is rich. And also, Andrew, you have to attest to how bad he has been in the preseason and in joint practices so far. It's not
I will
been good.
confess no such things on live media for people to hear. He has been fantastic. It is nothing short of it, and led the NFL in fantasy points per drop back, and that is my favorite man. He's going to stun on him and bring us to the Holy Land. I will say no bad things. I will hold my tongue. Steven, be nice to me and say nice things about Anthony Richardson.
So we knew about this one because Jacob had texted it yesterday, and I was texting. I don't know if you picked up on it, Jacob, but
I did.
Anakin Padme meme, so you have him getting injured, right? You have him getting injured, right? Because to me, that's the only way it doesn't happen. I think that's a decent reason to make this bold prediction, but I just think I don't even care. I mean, if he completes 59% of his passes, but rushes for 15 touchdowns, he'll be top 10. So I think it's all injury related, and that I am worried about because I could see him.
Wouldn't you be bummed if he was top 10 though and not top 5?
Yeah, because he's going.
Yeah.
He's going what, fifth overall right now. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's the real non-bold take here, is that he doesn't pay off his ADP, but that's boring.
And I do think I a lot of analysts, and I'd probably throw myself in there, of thinking he could finish as the QB1.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's that realistic based on the bad passing and the injury concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be unrealistic to say that he could definitely throw for under 3,000 yards, and that's where we start to get problematic. And under 20 touchdowns passing, that's problematic. Even if you're going to put up some massive rushing numbers, I just don't think he can put him up in the air to be the QB1. I do think he's a darn shoo-in for the quarterback 10, but it's a bold prediction show. You can't say the stuff we think is going to happen.
No shoo-ins.
He'll probably be top 10. Odds are.
Yeah.
And he's going to win the Super Bowl, and the Colts are great, but...
Yeah, but on the off chance he's not, I want credit for it.
Exactly. And then we will run back to this, and you'll be able to show it off. I will refuse to believe. I just can't. I can't linger on this any further. Anthony Richardson finishing outside the top 10. I will drink a goldfish or something. I would be so sad. All right. I got to get one. And it's building off of, let's turn positive now. It's got a similar vibe to Anthony Richardson not being top 10, but on the flip side, I think because of rushing upside, there is a rookie this year that many people are underrating. People are questioning how good of a passer they are, or how great is his situation. And no, I'm not talking about Jaden Daniels. No, I'm not talking about Caleb Williams, who are going way ahead of this quarterback. I'm talking about one Drake Maye, quarterback for the New England Patriots. I think he's going to finish top 15. And I will only say that on this podcast, where I can, again, go back to the legal disclaimer, not be held accountable. But Drake Maye will finish top 15. I was not even thinking this, considering it, or baking it at all until I got some news after this weekend. Jacoby Brissett is hurt. looks like he probably won't be ready to start the season. So that thrusts Mr. Maye into the starting fold. And it's all around the power of rushing QBs. And Drake Maye is a good rushing QB. He doesn't get enough credit for it. Since 2011, we have seen 4 rookies have rushed for 500 yards and had at least 175 pass attempts in their rookie season. I had to do 175 because Lamar Jackson technically played his rookie year in a lot of games, but he was the backup who'd come in for special plays. Didn't count. Had to throw it out somehow.
Yeah, him and Jalen Hurts rookie year, same kind of thing.
Yeah, very similar. So I had to throw those guys out. But 4 rookies who meet that mark with those 500 yards. And the worst of them was Josh Allen, who was the QB 14 in points per game. And he would have been obviously higher. I had to take points per game because he only played in 12 games. So if he rushes for 500 yards, he will finish top 15. Like, history just says that will happen as long as he starts enough games. And don't worry about passing or this team stinking. Josh Allen, like I said, who was the QB 14 in points per game, had 10 passing touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And he was still a top 15 QB on a points per game basis. I'll go back to the Anthony Richardson discussion. That applies. Put it in the books. However, again, Drake Maye is incredibly underrated as a rusher. We think Caleb Williams rushing quarterback. We think Jaden Daniels rushing quarterback. Drake Maye, he's an elite company for rushing. Quarterbacks in the last 6 seasons who were drafted in the first round and rushed for 500 yards in any single college season. Drake Maye, for instance, had 698 in 2022 and 449 in 2023. So I almost did this twice, but just once. This is guys who did it one time in the last 6 seasons. Tell me if these guys are good for fantasy. Jaden Daniels, we sure think he will be. Trevor Lawrence, we sure think he has upside and has been at least top 15. Anthony Richardson will probably be good. Kyler Murray, we know Jacob loves, was great for fantasy. Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, all guys, are they good for the NFL? It's a toss-up in that list, but they're good for fantasy. All had QB1 seasons or projected to have QB1 seasons at some point, and Drake Maye is right in line for that. Oh my guys, he's in this terrible offense. It's going to be dreadful. Brr, 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 brr. Baker Mayfield played in a similar Cleveland offense, and he was the QB 16. It's a similar offense. Now, I'm not saying in quality, but play style. Baker Mayfield was a QB 16 as a rookie, playing in 14 games. And Jarvis Landry was his best receiver by far. So it's not like he had a stack of studs. People like Jaden Daniels as a sleeper, but they should like Maye just as much because he's mobile and I think a better quarterback overall. And honestly, Daniels' situation isn't that much better than Drake Maye's. The only difference is Terry McLaurin. The Commanders' offensive line, dreadful. Woeful, terrible. The Patriots are probably better. And the Patriots have guys like Kendrick Bourne, who will be back, Hunter Henry, Jalen Polk, and Pop Douglas. I think Drake Maye is going to have a better season than possibly Jaden Daniels. He will be top 15, dang it. And I will never say that again.
That should have been your bold prediction there. Drake Maye over Jaden Daniels, I think. I think that's where you're getting at right there.
I just thought about it.
Well, put it on the board. On Daniels, too, other than the fact that he's 30 years old.
Why don't I like Jaden Daniels? Is that what you're asking?
No. I said you're high on him. I think you are as a rookie, but you just don't like him, the fact that he's elderly.
Yes, yeah, he's ancient. 25, I think he is, or something like that.
I don't think he's quite that old, but I get the point.
That's so old.
I can defend Andrew here.
You didn't even mention Antonio Gibson, as part of his weapons.
You don't need to mention him.
That was on purpose. Just kidding. I don't want to hurt myself.
Drake Maye right now is the quarterback 30 off the board, so this would be double his current value. But
sorry, Jacob.
You're good.
I was just going to say that Daniel Jones, the year he did it, now granted not his rookie year, 15 touchdown passes, and he finished QB9. Mm-hmm. He did have 3,200 yards. I don't see Drake Maye throwing for 3,200 yards, but 15 touchdowns, 708 yards. If Drake Maye can get some of those rushing touchdowns, I could see it. Top 15 for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable. Like you pointed out the marks that some of these top 15 quarterbacks have hit. It kind of sounds like top 10 tight end marks almost. It's a very reachable bar, even though he's on the worst offense in football. So I can't get away from that, but I do think he is a very good quarterback and is going to be around the league for a very long time.
Problem is there's just so many quarterbacks that I think we all like. It's like, when you're doing rankings or you're doing tiers and people are like, oh, like how could you have, this quarterback over this quarterback? Sometimes it's like, well, I have them bunched, like even in our rankings, like when we have our overall rankings, a lot of these quarterbacks are bunched together
Yeah.
because it's like we're splitting hairs between them.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to draft Drake May. You can just pick him up off waivers when he's got a good matchup.
He's undrafted in super flex leagues. Like, this dude is completely buried.
That's disrespectful.
That is.
He's the QB 30. Statistically, he's not drafted in every super flex league if you're not carrying 3 quarterbacks.
That's funny.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to say, like, who are you? Let's do a little name game here.
Do it.
Who are you drafting? I got to get
Start with Bryce.
All right, so I had to make this decision. Let's go Bryce Young. I also had to make the decision of Derek Carr or Drake May. And before doing this research, I said Derek Carr. I especially had to go Derek Carr because I took a risky QB2. Believe it or not, me and Superflex waited on quarterback because it's what I do. But
yeah.
Anyway, would you take Derek Carr or Drake May, in your guys' opinions?
I mean, based on what you said, I'd probably go Drake May.
But Derek Carr's Mr.
Yeah, I guess, you know what? I'm guaranteed QB 16. Your bold prediction is just top 15. Maybe I should go Carr.
Yeah,
that's better.
I'd go May, though, because I think Rattler will actually be starting games by some point this year.
Bryce Young. Bryce Young, you said it. Bryce Young or Drake May?
Bryce Young. But I'm a Bryce Young truther.
I don't know. I think it's close. I don't like the fact that New England plays like one dome game. I just see a lot of outdoor bad weather games, which isn't as quarterback friendly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another one though. Daniel Jones, though. I mean, he's looked terrible all like this offseason. Would you take him over Daniel Jones?
No, Daniel Jones was almost my bold prediction. I almost said Daniel Jones will be top 8 or something outlandish. This is the best offense Daniel Jones has ever played in.
He's never had a wide receiver.
Nope. Darius Slayton, his best friend for many, many years.
Yeah.
How about Will Levis?
I'm taking. Safely I'll say Will Levis, but on this show I will say Drake May, and no other show will I say that.
Are we getting Will Levis rushing ability from college or from last season? That's what I would want to know.
Don't need it. He'll still be better than Drake May.
Gonna have to assume last season. Alrighty, Steven, asking enough questions. I need you to go take your stand. What's your first bold prediction?
All right, sticking with quarterbacks here. This one I only came to recently. This was one guy that I was just kind of meh on because I am not as bullish on his wide receivers as everybody else seems to be. But I said that Jordan Love will outscore CJ Stroud.
Ooh.
And for me, so much of it has to do with, I feel like they're similar quarterbacks. I feel like both have good weapons. Now, while I think Stroud's are more top heavy and probably overall better, I still think Jordan Love has just this nice balance of wide receivers. He was just as good as Stroud was last season. The thing that is kind of the tipping point for me is if you just look at points allowed by defenses last year for fantasy points, Jordan Love has the easiest fantasy schedule in football this season.
Ooh, it's gorgeous.
CJ Stroud has one of the worst. And if you want to go, well, there's turnover. There's turnover in the NFL. Well, if you look at Pro Football Focus's strength of schedule, which takes into account their player grades and players moving teams, it still is about the same. I think they have Jordan Love with the 4th easiest schedule, and they have Stroud with like the 5th hardest schedule. So just factoring that in, I still think both of them could have a great season. This isn't really a knock on Stroud, but you're getting Love so much later that there's just no draft where I'm going to draft CJ Stroud where he's going, I think, 2 full rounds ahead of Jordan Love. So Jordan Love wasn't somebody I was targeting until I'm not necessarily targeting him, but like, for example, because we've all talked about to death how we like Kyler Murray where he's going. If I happen to just get sniped by Kyler Murray, I'm actually more okay with taking Jordan Love because he's typically the next quarterback to go, whereas before I wasn't.
I mean, there's the headline right there. I'm not taking CJ Stroud anytime in my draft. I mean,
yeah,
you're absolutely. We like to go.
It's a scary thing to say, but it's all based on what's going after him.
I'm not either. I'm just not taking him. You're having to take him up in the rushing quarterback tier when CJ Stroud doesn't run and Jordan Love doesn't run, but you get Jordan Love back in the tier of quarterbacks who don't run, or that have no established foundation.
And Jordan Love gives you some rushing. He gives you a little bit. Like Stroud doesn't give you any. Love gives you like at least, I don't know, an extra point.
He'll get a
of
couple
rushing
hundred yards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
He had 100 more than Stroud last year.
Yeah, so I mean, we're splitting hairs,
About.
but yeah, I see. And the thing is, I think we all agree. CJ Stroud. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, but he's gonna have to throw 50 touchdowns to finish as the QB1. It's just I'm just not taking that guy typically. I'll take Jordan Love, who probably won't throw 50, but I think he'll come close to Stroud's numbers.
Yeah, he was second in the league last year in passing touchdowns with 32. So
Yeah.
It was a down league or a down year for that sort of stat. But yeah, I like that. I like that. He's about 30 picks later. So great value. And yeah, that offense is going to be good.
And I think the Green Bay room, I keep arguing. We argued again over text. It's what we do all of the time. I like this Green Bay receiver room. I think it's at least good, above average. And I think Jaden Reed.
I think it's good.
I think in particular, Jaden Reed's really good.
Yes.
And obviously, the Texans have a better room. But at this point, when you're splitting hairs of the passing quarterbacks who don't run much, it's just going to be touchdown luck. Do you get that ball thrown in on the 2-yard line more often than you run it in? And it'll come down to that. And again, you get Jordan Love way later. So I like it. Dunk on CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans any moment I possibly can, happily. I like that one a lot, Steve. We're going to switch gears, get out of the quarterbacks, though, and move on to Jacob's second bold prediction. Say it with your chest, Jacob. What do you got for us?
Oh, I like this one a lot. I think you guys might actually like this one, too. I do. Isiah Pacheco finishing top 5 in fantasy this year, which almost doesn't feel quite bold enough. I think he could get a little bit higher than that if I really had to press the issue there, but I'll just say top 5 for now. So this is year 3 for Isiah Pacheco, and he is an every down running back for the best team in football. I think we can all agree on that. He's coming off an RB15 finish. He was RB14 in points per game. This isn't a huge jump, and you can get him at the RB10 at the 2-3 turn right now, which is lovely. I'll gladly do that if I'm starting with wide receiver. But Carson Steele's the backup right now, it looks like, who's more of a fullback type guy, and CEH's health is uncertain, and he's also not good at football. So there's no one behind him. There's no one behind him.
That is not a bold prediction. That's not a bold take.
No,
that one is clear.
It's not. And Jerick McKinnon's gone, and that's the guy that was the real issue last year for Pacheco. With the 10 games they played together last year, Pacheco only averaged 12.7 points per game. That's the RB24. But in the little sample size without McKinnon, the 4 games without him, that number jumped to 22.1, which would have been second best in the league last year. So he is definitely capable of taking on receiving work, and he's capable of being an every down back for the best team in football. I think with those guys gone, with no competition behind him, and with just elite usage that we saw even last year, from weeks 4 on, he averaged 18.6 touches per game. That's a lot of volume and a really good offense, and that bodes super well for fantasy. And to further exemplify that they just trust Pacheco as a bell cow, he averaged over 23 opportunities in the playoffs last season, which was 4 games for them on their way to the Super Bowl. Had 3 touchdowns in that span too, was getting the ball a ton. I think he's going to get the ball a ton all this year. They're going to lean on him. That's going to be a good offense. I trust the Chiefs, and I trust Pacheco.
And Pacheco, we trust.
Mm-hmm.
I was tweeting dumb things as I always do. Go follow me on X. What do they call it now? Is it a tweet or is it just a post?
I think it's just a post.
The wrong person.
It's just a post.
I've just more recently been.
I still call it a tweet.
Forever
tweets.
I was tweet Xing on the X over there. Thank you, Elon. Isiah Pacheco. The last time Chiefs running back handled 250 plus carries, that was Kareem Hunt in 2017. Kareem Hunt was the RB4 last year. Pacheco was well on pace to hit that once he got that RB1 role you had mentioned. So I'm very much all in on this Pacheco love.
Yeah, I agree. He's still a guy I don't look at and think great running back. He still looks raw to me. I'm worried about him getting hurt though. Is my one thing. He
does have a risk there. Yep.
He runs with reckless abandonment, and he's been hurt before, and he's not built like Derrick Henry.
He runs with hate for the ground.
Yeah, his feet. I feel like he's gonna get plantar fasciitis at the least.
Who taught him how to run? What PE teacher saw that kid running, hitting the ground like that?
He runs a 4.4.
I think
it worked.
I guess they couldn't say a real track coach. He could probably be in the 4.2s.
He's actually the fastest man on earth. He's Usain Bolt. Someone teach him how to run.
But the Chiefs have such a good offensive line too, so I think that's part of it. We know this offense is going to be really good. So yeah, I can get behind that one.
Yep.
We were
Just
looking
7
at the
touchdowns rushing last year, 2 in the air. So he gets a double-digit rushing touchdowns. This is a very easy mark for him to hit.
I feel like at the very least, I'm not expecting him to hit top 5, but I don't think he does any worse than where you're taking him. And if he does, it's maybe a couple of spots. Like I think he's very insulated with the usage.
It's just because he was a 7th round pick, and there are idiots like me saying the Chiefs won't trust a 7th round pick to give him the workload again, but they've already done it.
Yeah, that sounds like a 5th round running back that people are having issues with right now.
Oh, stop it! The Kyron Williams stuff. We will. He's fielding punts. I am concerned. Rightfully
fielded punts at one point. He'll be all right. Anyways, all right. Go ahead, Steve.
All right.
No, I was just gonna say, the Chiefs have figured out what every other team. If you've got a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, spend the least amount of money that you can on a running back, and a 7th round pick or an undrafted running back is like the least amount you can pay them. And so it's the least important position in football, so might as well.
Yeah, I think he's due actually next year, so that'll be interesting to see how they play that out.
But they'll be able to keep him. He's not going to. I digress. This is sidetracking, but he's not going to demand a big contract. He's not going to. They're not going to pay him one if he does.
Yeah.
No, he's one who's universally out there of he's going to be good for fantasy, but no one says this guy is a top 10 back in the NFL. There's just no way.
No way.
So yeah, I don't think he'll command that contract. But one guy on the Chiefs who I do not think will be having such a good season this year, at least not the season we expect him to have as he has had in the past. Travis Kelce, my bold prediction, will not be a top 5 tight end next season. And I'm actually buying into this the more I looked into it. These takes, I started out as, I'm going to find something outlandish to say, but then I really convinced myself and bought in on them. So Travis Kelce finishes outside the top 5 at his position. Reason number 1, Steven, guess what my first reason is on Travis Kelce?
Because he's so friggin' old.
That dude is so freaking old. He is 35. Who's 35 nowadays? Don't look into that. But he's 35 years old. All right. That is a problem because there just isn't much history of success for tight ends at age 35 or older. All right, guys, I'm going to list off all of the tight ends who at age 35 plus have had 1,000 receiving yards on a season. Okay, that was a good list. And now I'm going to list the ones that have had 10 touchdowns at that age in a season. Yeah, those are crickets, not names, because no one's ever done it at that age. It just never happened. And so now that's a high bar. Travis Kelce didn't do that last year. He didn't hit 10 touchdowns. He didn't hit 1,000 receiving yards, which I would say that's a red flag. Some might say, well, regression, the offense was bad, whatever. He might have to hit that. In the years past, you didn't have to, but now the tight end position's getting better and there's more competition around. I'll get more to that later. More concerning, he got put on ice last year. He was playing dramatically less snaps in the last, I believe it was from week 14 on is when they picked him back up, is when he started playing 85+% of snaps. Before then, he was not hitting that number, and that's not normal Travis Kelce. Last season, he was put on ice. He had he was ranked 8th in route participation, which is the lowest mark he's had since at least 2016. And his efficiency was not there either. His yards per route run was the lowest it had also been since 2016. And I'm picking that date because that's the furthest back my data will go on him because he's so ancient and old and we don't have the data back then. They wrote on rocks. They didn't have the statistics. So Travis Kelce is as bad as he's ever been. And there's a lot more going on again with the idea that they've never done it at that age. We've never seen it. So he's not at his peak. And like I said, competition. There's more competition on the Chiefs this year and at the tight end position. We keep talking about these elite tight ends. At the position, it's deeper than it's ever been. The tight end 8, this is how I'm kind of gauging how deep it is. The tight end 8 this year is Kyle Pitts off the board by Fantasy Pros consensus ADP. And that's also kind of where our tier is of the tight ends who could be really good. He's going off the board as the pick 63 overall. That's the highest it's been since I can track ADP value where the tight end 8 is going. So all the tight ends are going to finish higher up this year. We're thinking, you guys are drafting him that way. You think the tight ends are better this year. And the Chiefs added Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice broke out at the end of last year. So Travis Kelce is having competition at his position. He's having competition in his offense, and he's worse than he's ever been. Guys, they have to fall off at some point. This is the year Travis Kelce finishes outside the top 5 at tight end. I rest my case.
Steve, you want me to pile on, or you want to defend him first?
No, let me play devil's advocate. How many tight ends would you say from this data that you pulled, Andrew, have been as good of a tight end as Travis Kelce? And as injury-free.
He's the best tight end of all time. We can get that out of the
way. Tony Gonzalez is really the name that is like, he could maybe do that.
And Tony Gonzalez, do you know who his quarterback was at his age 34, 35, 36 season?
Matt Ryan was electric, dadgummit.
Okay, so he had Matt Ryan. We might have the greatest quarterback of all time throwing passes to Travis Kelce. So I get all of that data, but there are outliers, and he is an extreme outlier with an extreme situation that's hard to quantify compared to these other former tight ends. So while I don't think it's a crazy take, because I think the biggest thing is all the combination of the age with all the other good tight ends. Like,
yeah,
I've been pumping Evan Ingram and David Njoku all offseason about how I love them as like the tight end 8 and 9, but you have to take Ingram in round 6, which is crazy. That feels super early for taking the tight end 8. So to your point, there's a lot of good tight ends, which I have a take coming up that's very similar to what you're saying, but for similar reasons because of the competition.
Yeah, Kelce's the first tight end off the board, so you gotta take him early. But I'm with Andrew on this one because it showed last year already when Rice started to break out from weeks 8 to 17, which is a pretty large sample size. I excluded week 18 because he didn't play, so that wouldn't be fair. So I'm being fair here. Kelce was the tight end 9 in that span. Tight end 9. You know who was better than him in that span last year? Cole Kmet. And I don't
Go Irish.
Yeah. I'll get his name thrown in here, but it wasn't looking good at the end of last year. He didn't score more than 9.4 points in the fantasy playoffs last year. He lost you your league if you probably had him, unless you were getting points from other people during that span. But people seem to be trusting him again, even after getting kind of screwed in the fantasy playoffs. I think that's a little surprising.
Because he's dating Taylor Swift. You can't not trust the guy who dates Taylor Swift. She's an idol.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, do you want an asterisk on this that if Rice gets suspended, you're going to just backpedal completely, or?
No, it's the bold predictions pod. So if I'm right, we remember it. Yeah. If I'm wrong, we'll forget this.
That's fair enough. That's fair. Yeah, well, I'm with Andrew. Yeah, and like you said, Steve, the talent pool couldn't have gotten better at it. More.
Andrew, when you made this take, did you know Kadarius Toney was released?
He's outside the top 10 now. It changes everything. Kadarius Toney. Today was cut day, and we really could have hopped on this pod and talked news on it, but there wasn't any news. There was no cut that was newsworthy.
Yeah. No.
All right. It's Travis Kelce. Sorry, buddy. You got Taylor. What more can you want? You got a great podcast. What more can you want? You'll be the tight end 6, and you'll love it. Yeah. More rings. Yeah, he could be a 3-peat. Sorry, Travis, but ain't gonna happen this year. Steven, speaking of old people, or I don't know if you're gonna go positional similarity or old people similarity, but I'll let you ride with this one. What's your next bold take?
Well, I'm gonna stick with tight end since you just talked about this, and it's very easy to transition to it. But I have that Sam LaPorta finishes outside the top 8 tight ends.
8.
You mean the tight end 1 by ADP?
Holy juice!
The tight end 1. Well, he is it by ADP. The tight end 1. Now, I don't really think this is going to happen. I want to preface that, but
you don't have to preface it. This is a bold prediction pod. I already got the legal disclaimer out there.
Okay. It's all about the competition. If you look at, like we said, Travis Kelce, we got Mark Andrews, we got Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Kyle Pitts. I mean, these are all good tight ends who all have the opportunity to finish ahead of Sam LaPorta. LaPorta was good last year, especially for a rookie, and he'll probably get better. Again, so much of it.
You're not helping your take right now, Steven. Stop saying nice things.
So much of it was touchdown based. If he just comes down to the average of what some of the other tight ends got, 6 touchdowns, you take away 30 points from him. Now he's already outside of the top 5. I just think I'm high on Njoku. I'm high on Ingram. I think a lot of these guys have a chance to finish ahead of Sam LaPorta. And it's this big tier. It's just this big tier of good tight ends that I would not be shocked if any of them finish ahead of him. So for me, he's another guy, kind of like CJ Stroud. I am not taking him in any leagues. I have not done it, won't do it. He's the first tight end. I don't like taking a tight end first. I don't want to be the first one to take what I think is this massive tier. Same with quarterbacks. So yeah, I'm passing on him this year.
It kind of feels like Sam LaPorta is similar to what Mark Andrews did whenever he unseated Travis Kelce as the tight end 1 overall. And I really like Mark Andrews, and I'm considering putting Mark Andrews as my tight end 1 this year because I like him that much. However, people got really excited of, oh, here's the younger guy. Here's the next man up. And we got all excited for it, and it just wasn't able to keep the consistent dominance of praise Travis Kelce. Back in his younger years, he was excellent. But we're going to have a different tight end 1 this year, what have you. Sam LaPorta, it just, progression isn't linear. We're not going to just automatically see a better season. We've seen this in the past.
Yeah, he finished with 38 more points than David Njoku. And again, if we just throw touchdowns, if we do a little swing of touchdowns where he doesn't get 10 and he only gets 5, let's say, which is possible, then he's right there with what David Njoku did last year. Again, he had a good season, but he also played in every game, didn't miss a game. He was one of the few tight ends that played in every game. He didn't reach 1,000 yards. It's the 10 touchdowns and the competition around him.
Yeah. You remember, guys, Kyle Pitts was the tight end 6 his rookie year. Not quite 1, but he was 6 his rookie year. He has not sniffed that since then.
Yeah.
I really wanted to make an irresponsible Kyle Pitts take on here. I refused to do it. Even for the bold prediction pod, I don't want to do that to myself. It'll just hurt me emotionally.
Yeah.
More to your credit, Steve, Sam LaPorta had 4 more touchdowns than the next closest tight end, and he was 3rd in team touchdown percentage. So he had the 3rd highest rate of his team's touchdowns at the tight end position. So what if that drops? What if Jared Goff doesn't throw almost 35 touchdowns like he did this year? Like, that could happen. They could just run the ball more.
Well, and have you guys had this one? Have you been here like all off season? I've heard, Evan Ingram blow up game in week 18, which I get it. It's when fantasy points don't count, but I'm a Broncos fan. I saw the game when Sam LaPorta had 5 receptions against Denver, 3 for touchdowns.
Yeah.
Remove that game and he's already the tight end 4. So I'm just saying, it can happen both ways. It can swing. Evan Ingram's big blow up game could happen during the week 8 next year, and LaPorta's could happen in the week 18 or something. There
was less than a 2 point per game gap from him to the tight end 6 last year. I don't think it's that unreasonable if you take some TDs away that you could definitely be at the lower end of that mark.
He had 1 game over 84 yards last year.
Yeah, he's not a yards guy. It hurts.
Yep.
Yeah, Sam LaPorta, Travis Kelce. Sorry, guys. We might see some new tight ends sitting there at the top of the board next year. Jacob, who's one receiver that you're ready to say might be towards the top of the board this coming season?
Oh, yeah. I can't stop drafting this guy way ahead of his ADP. He's one guy that I'm just like, I am not getting screwed and missing him on the turn or wherever it is, and I will draft him a full round or 2 earlier. But it is DK Metcalf leading the league in receiving touchdowns is the bold take. It's a non-fantasy related take, but that will make him good for fantasy, I promise.
His touchdowns are good for fantasy.
Yes.
Cite Sam LaPorta.
Yes, they are.
Sam LaPorta.
Yep.
Or Garrett Blunt.
Where this mark kind of falls at the last 5 years is 18 is the most we've seen. That was Devontae Adams, and 11 is the least that we've seen. Any guesses on who that 11 mark is?
For what was it?
Led the league in receiving touchdowns. This is a fun little trivia thing as a little segue.
What year was it? This year?
No, past 5 years.
Oh.
Yep, it wasn't this past year.
Sorry, I'm still not understanding the question.
A wide receiver that led the league in receiving touchdowns.
With
it was only 11. Yeah.
In the last 5 years?
Huh?
I can't count that high. I can't count to 11. Because once you get to double digits, it's like they're 1 and a 0. Like, do I add them together? Steven, I'm buying you time, buddy. Get a guess out there.
I got nobody, man.
Nobody.
I keep thinking Adams. Yeah.
Cooper Kupp.
Nope. Cooper Kupp had 17. He was right there behind Adams. It was Kenny Golladay.
No, that's gross. Ew.
Of course we were going to guess that.
Yeah.
We would never guess that.
No, I knew. So DK Metcalf has been in between that 11 to 18 range once already in his career. He's had double-digit touchdowns twice in his career. And more importantly, in the past 3 seasons, he's been top 5 in red zone fantasy points, 2 of the last 3 years, top 10 in the other. So he's very active in the red zone. And he also gets a ton of volume in the red zone. Plenty of opportunities. Since 2019, no player has had more in-zone targets than DK Metcalf. He is getting the ball thrown to him when it matters the most.
Throw a ball at big man, score
That's
touchdown.
right. Yeah, it's very simple. Very simple. But the main point here is that we got a new look offense in Seattle, and that's what I'm so hot and bothered about with DK Metcalf this year. He's going to be the primary benefactor of one Ryan Grubb coming over from the Washington Huskies, who, they led the league or led the nation in passing yards. Sorry, not the league. He's
Years
coming
up,
from college.
Huskies? Would that be with that? Anyway.
That's
continue.
right. That's right.
Years up.
That's right. Yeah. So he's rumored to be moving all over the field this offseason. I think we're going to see him used in a multitude of ways. He's coming off of the best catch rate of his career. He was very efficient last season, and Tyler Lockett was actually on the decline. So the other end of that, and got more targets than DK did last year, weird enough, but still super efficient. And he's seen 120 plus targets the last 4 years. He sees a lot of those end zone, red zone targets. We know he can score touchdowns. I don't think it's far-fetched. He scored 8 last year, and we track missing points. He actually missed out on 6 touchdowns last year. So if he didn't miss out on those, he would have actually led the league in receiving touchdowns last year. So you get him as the wide receiver 20 now. He's my wide receiver 10. I think he's in for a monster year, and I'm not missing him in drafts.
Yeah, I was bullish on him last year because the previous year he was one of our top missing points guys. He just kept getting unlucky,
and he did it again.
They did it again. So 3rd time's a charm. For some reason, he and Geno can't seem to connect efficiently in the red zone. So if they can just figure that part of it out,
Better play calling will cure that.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf, again, big man, throwing ball. He's fast too. He'll run the ball in from far away. This man is good at football, and it's not hard to see or imagine why. Like you said, I am very much in on this Grubb offense. Something we haven't highlighted a ton was that the Seahawks were down at the pits of the league in just plays run on offense. What if guys, it's really easy to score more fantasy points when you play more football snaps on the offensive side. That helps, and they're going to get a lot more of that. So he can be less efficient with his touchdown catches even, and just have more attempts thrown his way, and it'll still pull through in that regard. So me and Jacob don't agree on a lot of players. DK Metcalf and Isiah Pacheco, check and check. All right, we are all in on these guys.
You guys sold me on him a little bit this year because I've been kind of hesitant on him. I had him ranked pretty low, but I have moved him up because you guys kind of sold me on this offense.
Good.
So if he does bad, I'm going to be pissed.
And
that's fine.
Again, it takes the way they work. If he's bad, no one will remember it, and we just won't bring it up again. That's how the YouTubers
Steve
work.
will bring it up if he's bad.
Exactly.
Oh, I definitely will.
Alrighty. So DK Metcalf, big guys score touchdowns. I'm running the same way. All right. My bold prediction is that Brian Thomas, rookie receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, will break the rookie receiving touchdown record. And
I love this.
So I had to say this because I don't know. So this is really outlandish. The record was set by Randy Moss in 1998 with 17.
Oh,
that's a really high number.
There's no way that's happening.
So I really, in reality, my less bolder take is that he'll break the most since 2000, which was Jamar Chase with 13. That one's more likely, but this sounds way cooler. So again, if it happens, I sound amazing. But let's get into it a little bit. Why could he chase Randy? Well, the record again was set by Randy Moss, who is this big, amazing, awesome wide receiver, just like Brian Thomas. Weird similarities in sizes. Randy Moss, and when he entered the league, 6'4", 210 pounds, ran a 4.36 40, and was drafted 21st overall. Brian Thomas, 6'3", 209 pounds, ran a 4.33 40, and was drafted 23rd overall. So lots of weird similarities in that regard. I just even think their play style is very similar in some rawness, but some absolutely insane talent. On top of that, it's not just a matter of talent, which the Jacksonville Jaguars' own offensive coordinator has said, this dude looks incredible. Press Taylor is losing his mind over this guy, which I love. Please stop throwing the ball to Evan Ingram. Sorry, Steve. Throw it downfield to Brian Thomas instead this season. Brian Thomas was drafted in the 1st round to replace Calvin Ridley. because the Jacksonville Jaguars had him ripped away at the last second. They fully planned on bringing Ridley back, and now Thomas has to replace that role and maybe even more downfield. Well, guys, guess who led all tight ends and receivers, anyone who catches footballs with their hands, in end zone targets? Well,
Calvin Ridley.
That was Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
He had 24 said end zone targets, and that led the entire NFL. So Brian Thomas, a lot bigger. He's made for that. Brian Thomas led all of college football in touchdown catches last season with 17 of them there. So what if he just repeats that? He just likes that number a lot. Just do 17 again. No, one more. 18. Break the record. Don't match it. Weird side note. Here's some players since 2019 who led the NCAA in touchdown receptions. In 2019, it was Jamar Chase. And Justin Jefferson was number 2. 2020, Devontae Smith. 2021, Jordan Addison, who had 10 touchdown catches as a rookie last year. Tank Dell led the college in 2022, and that brought us back to 2023 when Brian Thomas. So all I'm saying is Brian Thomas actually in some weirdly elite company, comps to the guy who set the record. The situation's there. The Jacksonville Jaguars desperately need this guy to pop off and do something for their offense. And we saw all the clips going around of Calvin Ridley almost catching a lot of those passes. And Trevor Lawrence is a darn good quarterback. I think it could happen.
Well, if they look as good as they did in the final preseason game, it could definitely happen. Did you bring up Calvin Ridley's rookie year?
I did not.
So he had 10 touchdowns his rookie year. I feel like that's a kind of a good comparison as far as about where they were drafted in the draft, the quality of quarterback that they have going into the season. He's not touching Randy Moss's record. This is a bull pick thing, but I think 10 touchdowns, something like what Ridley did. Mike Evans with 12 touchdowns his rookie year. I definitely think something like that's possible because I don't know. I think we're all in agreement. We're expecting a bounce back for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags.
100%. Yeah, that Calvin Ridley is vacating 136 targets in this offense, and he was also our missing points leader last year. So there is a lot of opportunity that is being left on the table. And Gabe Davis is not taking that opportunity away.
I thought
that
he was
going
a
to
tight end the other day. When I saw him drop that red zone target, I was like, "Who is that tight end?"
Shocker. Yeah. So I'm all in on this. I love Brian Thomas.
I just picked him up in one of my drafts, and I was so excited. He's the perfect 4th wide receiver to sprinkle on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's going to get a million targets. I do think there's some target competition, again, with Ingram and Kirk. But the downfield, high-value, boom week giving targets and receptions, those are going Brian Thomas's way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chance he just is Randy Moss. Bold prediction show only, will not repeat. I'm not going to say something like Steven said on another pod, like Trey Benson's Adrian Peterson or something like that. I will never let you live that down.
You're mixing slander. I'm going to sue.
I remember that word for word, actually, Steve.
Never let him live down. Brian Thomas, man, he's going bonkers. Steven, you think another guy's going to score a lot of touchdowns this year. Please tell us about your last bold prediction.
I have to defend the old people because they matter too. Okay.
I'm not doing it. I'm sure not doing it.
They still have a purpose. So my bold prediction is Derrick Henry scores 20 plus rushing touchdowns this season.
That's a lot of tutties.
That's a lot of
That's
tutties.
almost as old as he is. Not that big of a number.
I just think don't give me data. Do not
Don't start there.
Yes.
Stop it. That's not a good start.
Don't give me I'm being serious. I don't want to hear age 30 running backs, blah, blah, blah. Running backs that switch teams, blah, blah, blah. Every time we know that this is a good Ravens offense. We know it's going to be one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL. We know they're going to get inside the 5-yard line a ton. If you're going against Derrick Henry and they get inside the 5, you can't tell me every one of you is not shitting your pants at that point.
I would not want to step in front of Derrick Henry. There's my bold take. I'm not stepping in front of him.
No, he's getting those touches. They're not giving it to their what's Lamar's contract, $154 million or something.
A lot.
They're not giving it to Lamar there.
He's not a touchdown guy. He's not a rushing touchdown guy.
There's going to be wide open rushing lanes for Derrick Henry because Lamar can pull it back. This offense, I think, is going to be very efficient. I like the weapons that they got there. I like Zay Flowers. I like Mark Andrews. I think they complement Derrick Henry not having to be the only guy in the offense. Yes, he is a little bit older. I'm a little bit worried about that. So as far as like where he finishes on the year in rushing yards, I'm a little less, like I'm not going to make a bold prediction of him rushing for 2,000 yards, but I think the 20 rushing touchdowns is definitely possible with how good I think this offense will be.
I can't knock you on the touchdowns. I have Henry far lower in my rankings than you do, Steven, but it's because I think he'll only feast on touchdowns. I think he's going to be the guy who's I classically kind of David Montgomery, but better than that last year, where if he scores a touchdown, you're happy. And if he doesn't, you're not so happy. Like he'll get 9 points instead of 15, 16, 17. So yeah, Derrick Henry, I think he'll score a ton of touchdowns. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Gus Edwards was scoring touchdowns in this offense.
13.
13. That's a lot. Like now just Derrick Henry supersize that. And now all of a sudden you can be sniffing that 20.
I just want to point out, where do you have him ranked in your rankings?
He is my RB12 right now.
LeGarrette Blount in 2016 finished as the RB9 because he rushed for 18 rushing touchdowns.
He had a lot that year. It was pretty crazy.
So I'm just saying, I feel like he's got a LeGarrette Blount floor.
Yeah.
And I need you to adjust your rankings immediately, Andrew.
Gus Bus was 5th in the league in touches inside the 10 last year.
Yeah.
Like Henry's going to get more volume than that. And he doesn't even need more volume than that to do what you're recommending here. So
he had 13 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
How old was this LeGarrette Blount figure whenever he did that?
Oh, he was old.
I'm trying to look at it.
It was in 2016, so he was 30. He was
30. No way. Yep,
Yeah.
You're right. Sure enough. And he had 38 receiving yards to go with all of those touchdowns.
Yeah, that was one thing on our text chain, Andrew, is you were like, I'm worried about receiving yards. And I was like, nobody's factoring in receiving yards for
less than 4 yards a carry, too, that year for Mr. Blount.
He caught 7 passes.
He wasn't even good. He just got in the end zone.
Yeah, 18 rushing touchdowns. That's what Derrick Henry's going to do.
Yeah. The record's 28, by the way. So that seems far-fetched, but 20 seems reasonable.
But, what's funny about it is, if this offense is as good as it was last year, there's a scenario where he could. I don't think he'll threaten it because it's just a different game. But if anybody was going to be an old school running back, it's Derrick Henry.
I mean, he is old, so old school fits there. I mean, back in the time when stats were taken on tablets and you had to mail in your fantasy lineups to your commissioner. Steven, were you old enough to play in those days?
Well, so I do remember when Yahoo charged for a thing called Stat Tracker. So you had to actually pay a premium to have to be able to live see what your points were. Otherwise, you had to wait till the next day.
Wow.
God bless you guys for carrying on the tradition of fantasy football long enough to the computers catching up and us being able to actually play this in an efficient and effective way.
But I remember the first year I played fantasy. I had the Chargers defense going like a Monday Night Football. That was when Sean Merriman was like knocking people out and doing the lights out thing. And they like shut out the Raiders. They won like 30-0. They had some defensive touchdowns. And I didn't think I had any chance at winning. But I had no idea. Like I knew they scored a lot of points, but I was new to fantasy. I didn't know how to do it in my head, like how many points. So I just remember refreshing Monday morning, or Tuesday morning, refresh. I lost by a point. I still remember it.
Is there any last second takes you guys had that you couldn't throw together or put on paper even that you kind of want to get off your chest?
Oh, I got a bunch.
I definitely do. Steve, you go.
This is your last chance. The legal disclaimer that our lawyers drafted up is still hanging on by a thread. So if you need to get it off your chest, now is the time.
Rattle it off.
Here. Okay, so I'll just do rapid fire.
He has an actual list. He has his tablet out that he sketched him onto. Yeah.
So I got Josh Allen, not a top 5 quarterback.
Ooh,
I like it.
I like that one.
Saquon Barkley finishes first overall.
Don't like it.
Devin Singletary finishes top 15.
He's the best running back in the NFL.
Bijan Robinson finishes outside the top 10.
Hate
I
it so
thought about
much.
this one. I thought about that one.
Did you?
I don't
Yeah.
like you. Get out of here.
And Jacob,
Move on.
this goes more
No,
into the
keep
fact
going.
that,
Rapid fire.
all right, rapid fire. All right. Malik Neighbors outscores Marvin Harrison.
Like
George Pickens outscores Drake London.
Woo.
Yep.
Josh Palmer outscores Jaden Reed.
Stop it.
That one was for
Stop
you,
it.
Andrew.
You stop that.
And then Evan Ingram finishes as the tight end one.
I'm
Nice.
shocked you didn't have an Evan Ingram somewhere
Well,
in here.
I almost did it, but then I thought we all had to have at least like one negative take.
Yeah.
And that was my Sam LaPorta one.
That's why the one I left out was Kyler Murray averages 20-plus points per game, which
That's
would get
not-
him in that
That's
top
not
3
that
scenario.
bold. That's kind of like right about his career average, isn't
That'd
it?
make him like a top 3 quarterback. Top 3 is pretty bold, no? Not in this landscape?
Yeah, I'll count it.
Well,
Yeah.
no. I think bold would have been top 3. I think 20 points per
Yeah.
game is maybe the
Well,
part.
that gets you to top 3 most seasons. So
Yeah.
But
it was just different than fantasy finish.
Too many numbers. I can't count to
Okay,
20.
you're
I
right.
can
He's
count to 3.
finishing top 3. There you go.
Yeah, 1 and 2 and
Yep.
There you go.
we'll get
There
there.
you go.
We'll
I got
get
a
there
few
one day.
others. I'll rattle off real quick.
Yeah.
James Cook, top 5 in all-purpose yards. We talked about that one a little bit in our text
Mhm.
chain. I like that one. Brock Bowers finishes with 1,000 receiving yards. That would.
Ooh.
There's only been 2 other rookie tight ends that have done that. That is mostly because I have an anti-Devontae Adams take, but whatever. Devontae Adams finishes outside the top 20 of wide receivers.
I just quickly, Devontae Adams, I have cooled on. He
Yep.
was one of the old guys that I was like, oh no, volume. I still think he'll get volume, but now with the quarterback situation worried me even
Yeah.
more, and trade rumors and him being unhappy.
Yep. Yeah, it makes me like Bowers even more. And then Calvin Ridley finishes in the top 15.
I love it. I love it. That is the bold predictions. We got them off our chest, and we cannot be held liable for them. And again, the text chains are now locked down. We can't leak out the information. That's where we'll have to get these outrageous takes out of our minds. So again, one last time, this legal disclaimer. The following takes that were just given are meant to be senseless and admittedly unlikely to occur. We are not to be held accountable for them unless, of course, we are correct, in which case we will take full credit. And I will get us out of here. If you are listening, guys, clearly you want to win your leagues. Go back and listen to our other podcast with our tiers, our rankings, our sleepers, our other great content. Go get it. Tell us in the comments what we got right, what we got wrong. Tell us your bold predictions. I'm getting in there. I'm answering every comment I can possibly humanly get to. Get on there, interact, and make sure you get the draft guide. People, you're going to get an actual thought-through take on our draft guide with actual information so you can get your own stuff written down there at Fantasy Guides on Instagram. You can find a link on there or go to fantasyguides.com to pick up our draft guide. Follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast. Make sure you're tuning in weekly for our podcast. We're going to have starts, sits, buy, sells, and more. Going multiple pods a week whenever we get there.
Soon.
So